Well, hello, Meredith.
Hey, Terry.
I was excited that you were going to be on Real Life. I have been following your music since you've been in college, which was just like last year, right?
Oh, yeah. We can pretend like it was.
Okay. And, but you were a student at Liberty University,
Yes.
and I remember hearing some of your music. My girls, I have 4 kids, and my girls were the ones that introduced me to your music.
Yeah.
And so I've always been blessed. And so before we talk about you as the musician, let's talk a little bit about who you are. Tell us about your where you were born.
Sure.
and that kind of stuff.
Well, I grew up in North Carolina. We went to a small church, my parents and I did, the kind of church where if you are on staff in any capacity, you actually pull double duty, you know? So
Sure.
my mom was over the children's ministry, but she also led worship like every other Sunday. And my dad was a deacon, and then he cut the grass every other Saturday, you know? And so I feel like I grew up under a pew, essentially. But I love that. I love the heritage that I have in that, and the kind of church that I went to. You know, my youth group, we would spend all nights praying together, and we had a youth ministry, youth event like every Saturday night called the Potter's House. And just, I can't tell you just how the Lord cultivated my desire just to be in His presence and to lead people into worship through that. That's kind of where I started leading worship.
I was going to ask, have you always, even as a young child, or not young child, teen, that you were singing?
Yes,
Okay.
I started singing when I was 6. That was the first time I ever sang solo in church. And my mom and I did some Southern gospel music together when I was really little, just in area churches. And then when I was 12, I started singing backup and playing tambourine for our youth band. And then that kind of, by the time I was 15, I was leading worship and playing keys for our youth band. And so that's kind of how it all started. And then when I graduated from high school, I went on to Liberty University, like you mentioned, and was on a couple teams there, one that traveled, and then my last 2 years, one that led worship for all our campus services.
So your heart has always been, it seems, not just in singing, but in leading worship. And so if you want to share some of your experiences with that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I remember when I was 17, I went to a Rebecca St. James concert.
I remember her.
Yeah, she was one of my favorites. And I went away from that concert going, Lord, I would love to do something like that, but I don't know what it's supposed to look like, and I don't know what you have in store. But whatever it is, I just surrender this gift to you. I surrender this desire to you. And the Lord said to me so clearly that night, it was a very defining moment in my life, and He just said, Meredith, be faithful where I've placed you. And at the time, you know, I'm leading worship for my youth group and sometimes on Sundays at my church. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to grow where I'm planted. I'm going to be faithful here, and the Lord is going to do what He wants to do. And I feel like my life is just a testimony of that. Like God has opened the doors. I haven't had to push anything over. I haven't had to manipulate any circumstances or situations, or I've just gone, okay, Lord, help me to be faithful in this, because I'm a firm believer that when you're faithful where God has you, like it's so important, even in that season, even if you don't feel like God is using you to the fullness of what He's going to, He's preparing you.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's not, He's not going to give us everything all at once, because we might not be able to handle it. You know, He's building our character and teaching us how to work hard and be responsible and to count it as the privilege that it is. And for me, now that I'm on staff at a church in Chicago leading worship for our people, I was telling you earlier as we were getting ready, sometimes I'll just stand there and cry, because I love being in the presence of God, and I love being in the presence of the Lord with His people, and getting just to go, hey guys, this is the best part of our week, that we get to approach the throne of grace together, and we get to go before the Lord together. And when we're in the presence of God, that's when He does things. Like it changes us, and hopefully we're not the same as when we first walked in the door.
Yes. What an honor that you have to lead and usher people into the presence of God through worship, through music. I understand that you also write a lot of your songs with you and your husband, and so that's amazing to me. Does he give you inspiration, and it cultivates from there?
Yeah, sure. When I was 12 was when I first started writing, and you know, I didn't really know what I was doing. I wrote a song with 6 verses and no chorus. I guess I thought I was a modern day hymn writer, you know. But you got to start somewhere. Back then I would put all of my songs on a cassette tape. I'd play them on my little keyboard, record them on a cassette tape, and then I'd send them with the lyrics to Washington, D.C. to the copyright office, because I didn't know what else to do. You know, I'm like, well, at least they're legit now, you know, they're copyrighted. But yeah, the Lord is growing me me in my songwriting as well. And you know, a lot of the ways that I write is just out of seasons of life and what God is teaching me, what God is showing me through His Word. And actually, I just wrote a song this week, just a few days ago, just kind of out of that, like something that the Lord has been saying to me. And even like, you know, we've been on a tour together, and it's something I've been able to share on this tour. But the fact that, you know, wherever people are in their journey, that Jesus sees them. And so I wrote a song the other day with my friend called Jesus Sees. And I think that's so important. And if you don't mind me sharing, Teri.
No, that's awesome. Please do.
Yeah, so I sat under some teaching from my good friend Lisa Harper. I did a women's conference with her recently, and she was talking about a passage. I believe it's in Mark 11, but I could be wrong. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's in Luke 7, because she was going with two of them. Who even knows? But, sorry, I don't have my Bible in front of me. But she was telling the story about this widow who had just lost her only son.
Oh, yes.
And it's in the Gospels. And Jesus sees her, and they're going along in this funeral procession, and I'm sure her head is down, and she's so grieved. She's already lost her husband, and here she's lost her only son, and she's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, maybe I'd just take me too, because I don't have any other reason to live, you know. So it's just, you know, what dialogue I'm thinking, you know, like. And what's so amazing about that is it says that Jesus sees her and is moved with compassion. Like, He just has compassion on her, and He walks up to her and He raises her son from the dead.
Yes, He
does. And she didn't see Him. She didn't ask that He would do that, because she was so buried in her grief, she couldn't see past her grief. But Jesus saw her, and He went to her. And I just love that so much, because even no matter where we are in our lives, Jesus knows. He is right there with us. He's walking through the hard things with us, and He sees us even if we don't see Him. That's one of another kind of epiphany for me that I had, was that, you know, I used to think that I would write songs out of my pursuit of God and my journey and walk with the Lord, but it's actually, I write those songs because God is always pursuing me, even on the days when I'm not pursuing Him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that did change my life. And I'm like, and praise God for that, because it takes pressure off of me. And I just go, wow, look at the grace and the patience and the kindness of God, that He would pursue me, even on the days when I'm just like oblivious, or I'm going the other way.
That's right. Well, I look forward to hearing that song.
Yeah, well, I can't sing it today because I got to practice it, but maybe next time we'll
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been wonderful to get to meet you and know you, and hear more about how God's working in your life. That's awesome.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
very much.
Teri. So good to be here. Thank you.